Welcome to Activate.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Activate and our first session of the day. My name is Patrick Hine.
And I'm Nate McCarrick, and we are very excited. We have got a very packed agenda today to talk about a lot of extremely exciting Q-SYS innovations. As always, this is live. This is actually genuinely live. You are watching us right now. We are here in the studio, and that means that you can ask questions, and we have a lot of people that are ready to answer those questions. And if things go wrong, then we will just fall on our faces. It'll be glorious.
Yeah, right.
We are actually in a brand new studio, one that we have built ourselves here in our headquarters in Costa Mesa, California.
And as we're going to kind of vamp a little bit while people are funneling in. And while we do that, we are going to take a very quick look at the studio, mainly because we're pretty proud of it. And if you are a Q-SYS customer or a dealer or integrator, you will be seeing this space on the regular. So with that, I'm actually going to address this large LED screen. This was brought to us by our friends at LG. Thank you so much. A 25-foot canvas that we're going to be using to paint today's story on. And you know what? Since we're kind of still vamping here, I'm going to turn this camera around. Siobhan, if you don't mind turning on the lights, let's take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. You got me right here. We've got plenty of Q-SYS innovation throughout the studio. So we're doing lighting control, audio. We've got control over our Blackmagic switcher. Behind these screens is actually where all the magic happens for a lot of the training videos that we produce in here. And then we've got, you can't see it, there's a really awesome desk behind here. And then actually behind this door is our video village where our friend Nick is basically calling our entire show and making us look as good as humanly possible.
So we're excited for this space. We're going to be, giving a lot of announcements from here, as well as from regional offices all around the world. So keep your eyes open for new training events, for new, partner success stories, lots of new ways that you can connect with Q-SYS.
Speaking of connecting, that's what today is all about. It's really not just about new product announcements, although we've got a lot of them to go over today. It's more about connecting with you and allowing you to connect with us. And so to that end, make sure that you're taking full advantage of that live Q&A, because we have dozens of Q-SYS employees from around the globe answering questions, specialist product managers, program managers. So make sure you take full advantage of that. And in fact, the next kind of innovation that we're introducing into Activate is the idea of breakout sessions. So at the conclusion of today's presentation, which is going to run about an hour or so, we're going to have all of today's presenters in what is going to feel like an office hour, if you went to one of those in college, where you're going to be able to answer and ask questions and get honest responses from product specialists from around the globe. So please take advantage of those if you can.
Okay, so before we jump into any product announcements or anything like that, we've got some messages from important people who actually could not be here in studio today, but they still have something that they'd like to say to kind of set the stage for today's meeting. So let's hand it over to them.
Hi, I'm Marcus.
And I am Anna. On behalf of Q-SYS, thank you for joining us today. 2 years ago, when we started Activate, we thought about what a great way to bring the latest product innovation to all of you. And today will be no exception.
But it's going to feel a little different as well. You're going to hear from our product developers directly. We're going to share case studies from around the world. We're going to share insights into our roadmap and wins. And we're going to talk about shortcomings as well.
This is why we want to acknowledge the challenges we know all of you are facing.
Global supply chain challenges caused many discussions. Long lead times drive all of us crazy, but we are in this together.
At Q-SYS, our customers come first.
That's why our engineering and supply chain teams have undergone over 50 different redesign projects to combat component availability challenges.
We equip our sales representatives every day with the latest information to keep you up to date.
Every product intro today is software by design. This means we are less reliant on hardware, instead scale at a software level.
Thank you for joining us for Activate today. And with all that, Patrick, Nate, let's get started.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Marcus. So with that, I actually am going to set the tone and talk about some of the products that we announced in the last Activate. and a couple activates prior. First and foremost, I want to talk about the Core Nano. The Core Nano is effectively been the saving grace for our post-pandemic slash supply chain time period. It really is a saving grace. It's integrated audio, video, and control, and it happens to be available now and ready to start solving a lot of your problems. Paired with that are a lot of the PoE devices that we announced in the last Activate. So new touchscreens, new I/O expanders, new cameras, new loudspeakers, all of which are PoE and all of which are available for purchase right now. And in fact, if you are having issues getting the core of your choice and you need a little bit of assistance in transitioning that project into the Core Nano plus some of these new PoE devices, we have a special breakout session that is going to be manned by Kevin Rodas and Steve McCary. They are experts in making that transition. So please, if you're interested in that topic, stay tuned at the end and make sure to join that breakout session.
A couple of other updates for some other products that we've announced recently. The NM series, the network microphones that we announced in our previous Activates, we got a date for those now. Those are coming in on December of this year. And then also for the SPA-Q series of amplifiers, as well as the landscape versions of the Acoustic Design series loudspeakers. Those are coming in the first quarter of 2023. So those are on the roadmap quite soon. Okay, so transitioning from the old stuff, getting ready for the new stuff. To launch our first big announcement here, I'd like to introduce, it's my pleasure to bring onto the stage our President and COO, Mr. Jatin Shah.
Right. Thank you, Patrick. Hi, everyone. I'm Jatin Shah. It is great to be here today in front of you in our new production studio. It is my pleasure to set the stage for today's conversation, the next evolution of our Q-SYS platform technology. By now, it should be no surprise that our innovation story started with software. When others were requiring separate boxes for control and video, we integrated audio, video, and control into a single chassis, thanks to the Q-SYS OS and the standard IT technology. When others were implementing features such as acoustic echo cancellation with dedicated chipsets, we gave it to you with the firmware update for free. Back in 2016, we decoupled Q-SYS OS from our hardware and delivered a core on a standard off-the-shelf Dell server. And most recently, we gave you the power and flexibility to right-size your systems with feature and scaling licenses. And today, we are continuing to innovate at the software layer, once again redefining what to expect from your AV platform and ecosystem. This is going to be a lot of fun. You'll hear about a new software license that transforms your existing Q-SYS touchscreen into a fully functioning audio and video bridge, completely removing a piece of hardware from the table. We'll show you how we built upon the work that was done on Core 5200 and brought the Q-SYS OS downstream, giving you a better way to centralize your system processing. And lastly, and probably the most exciting of all, we're going to enable you to drive Q-SYS control directly from a PC. Imagine adding control, automation, monitoring, even help desk services. All of this without a physical Q-SYS core processor. That's pretty cool, right? I think it's a great place to start. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Q-SYS vCore, our first fully virtualized processor. Let's take it away, guys.
Thank you, Jatin. Thank you. Okay, like Jatin said, Q-SYS vCore is about to deliver scalable functionality in a fully software format. That means that you're not going to have to use Q-SYS hardware as a core processor, but instead deliver Q-SYS OS from your PC or server, as long as it meets the requirements of our supported hypervisors. This is going to be a new virtualized platform that is going to rely on vCore-specific feature licenses. That first license that we're going to be introducing today is going to be focused on control. So make no mistake, we're not introducing audio or video just yet. This conversation is all about enabling the entirety of the Q-SYS control engine. So we are enabling automation, user experience, remote monitoring for those places that it may not have been practical to do. The other thing that this is going to enable is the inclusion of certain Q-SYS hardware peripherals. So for example, all of the control devices in the QIO series. We're also including control over every TSC that's in our portfolio. And lastly, we are going to include the usage of UCI Viewer and the iOS app. So all of those virtualized screens as well.
So where does this go? This is perfect for those less complex huddle spaces, a space that might already have all of its audio and video requirements met by some other solution. Maybe it's got, maybe an audio soundbar or something like that, and you don't need to add any more audio and video on the Q-SYS side, but you do need some control in that room. I mean, a lot of our research has shown us that one of the #1 complaints about, people have in these rooms is you can't control the displays when you've got this smaller system that's just running, a smaller huddle room. So that's what this is for. You can now use all of the benefits of Q-SYS to control that smaller system. You can control the displays and automate those. You can connect with IP occupancy sensors, with the lighting system. All of that can be now under your control. And if you're connecting with a UC platform like Microsoft Teams Room, maybe Google Meet, you can also get control for all of those third-party devices onto the same control device that UC platform is using. And that's just something that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. And it's also, of course, worth mentioning that because you're now using the Q-SYS platform for these smaller rooms, that means that you're getting all the benefits of something like Q-SYS Reflect Enterprise Manager in those rooms. You can now bring your monitoring and management to the rooms of that size, kind of bridging the service gap that you normally wouldn't have access to for those smaller bespoke systems. And that's everything. That means that you can monitor the systems, you can get live diagnostics, you can do troubleshooting and control the UCIs in those rooms. All of that is available through the vCore.
It's not just for huddle rooms, though, of course. You can use it in legacy rooms. So let's take an example. This legacy room has an existing DSP, and maybe it's got an aging control system that you want to swap out. But the budget for this room is just not there. You want to be able to use the existing DSP, but add a new control system. With vCore, that is absolutely a possibility. So if you wanted to, you can add a fully functioning control engine with a touchscreen, and you can do so with the confidence knowing that if in fact you are going to eventually flip this room into a full Q-SYS system, that you'll be able to take that control programming with you. And that's because the vCore is running the exact same control engine that the rest of our processors run. Let's actually take a little bit of a deeper dive into this technology. I'm going to welcome back to the stage Jatin Shah. Thank you for being here, Jatin. And I'm also going to welcome Greg Mattson, who is our product manager for vCore. Thank you for being here, Greg.
Yeah, of course.
Jatin, I'd like to start with you. Can you take us through the impetus behind the virtualized platform, how we got here and where it's going?
Sure. vCore comes at a great time during the supply chain challenges. But the reality is that we have been working on virtualizing the platform for some time now. And it just makes sense overall. And we built the OS that runs on standard hardware, so then why not just let people deploy on their own hardware? So that was the thinking.
Exactly. Greg, can you actually take us through a couple of use cases? We looked at a couple of collaboration spaces, so let's actually start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like the room that Nate was referring to earlier, here we have a diagram for kind of a typical small conference room or huddle room space. By adding vCore to this room that, most of the audio is being handled by that kind of integrated speaker bar, but by bringing vCore to the pre-existing room PC, we're able to add reliable automation and control of the AV assets in the space, while also enabling important software features like remote monitoring and help desk functionality.
But this is not kind of relegated to just the collaboration space. This is really, it's for any space that needs a little bit of control, right?
Absolutely. So to kind of take a look at a different vertical, here we have an example of kind of a premium guest room experience for a hospitality partner. By adding vCore, we've been able to provide an enhanced user experience by automating the behavior of kind of disparate AV resources or AV assets and tying them back to the guest entertainment system.
Now, for some folks out there, the idea of setting up a hypervisor and putting an image onto it might be just kind of an unknown concept. Can you take us through how that deployment actually works?
Absolutely, and quite frankly, it's it's less complicated than it actually sounds. First and foremost, you're going to download the relevant vCore image from the Q-SYS website. There will be a software landing page, much in the same way that you get Q-SYS Designer software today. Once you've downloaded that image, you're going to install it with one of our supported hypervisors following our deployment guides. And then afterwards, you're able to purchase and activate a license, basically through our standard sales channels. And then once activated, you simply deploy to it just like you would any of our hardware-based platforms.
You brought back up that license again. Can you take us through the licensing terms and how that works with vCore?
Yeah, so these control feature license bundles have a new cloud-based license that's associated with them that are based for or that are added for the purposes of firmware and maintenance. So there is going to be two options for these term maintenance licenses at launch: a 3-year and a 5-year version.
Okay, makes sense. And then take us through the ideal size of vCore and what it's going to support with this license in terms of the rest of the processing portfolio.
Absolutely. So this first iteration of this product is more oriented at these smaller, more simplistic systems. So there is going to be a 16 peripheral limit on these initial systems.
Makes sense. Lastly, people are going to want to know when they can get it, so give us a clue onto that.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to say that we should be doing a launch starting with the U.S. The latter half of next month, and a global rollout will follow shortly thereafter.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jotten. Thank you, Greg. Just a quick reminder, if you have questions about vCore, we have that breakout session at the end where Greg and a couple others will be ready to take your questions. But until then, thank you, Jotten.
Right.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep,
Appreciate it.
All right, so the vCore is clearly going to open up some horizons for us as far as control goes, and that pairs very nicely with our next topic we're going to talk about, and that is the Q-SYS Technology Partner Program. And to help me out with that, I'm bringing to the stage Mr. Gino Zahari, who's a principal with our Alliances and Ecosystem team. Hi, Gino. How are you?
Well, Nate, thank you.
Glad to have you. Can you start off, just for people who might not know what this program is, can you remind us all what the Technology Partner Program happens to be?
Absolutely.
Cool.
So if you attended InfoComm, you might recall we announced the Q-SYS Technology Partner Program, which is dedicated to supporting Q-SYS integrations with hardware manufacturer and software providers. It focuses on control plugins as well as Q-SYS Enterprise Manager API integrations. So that's the core focus of the integration process. We also, the program's supported by 3 foundational pillars, right? We want to innovate with our partners to learn a little bit more about their hardware device or their software to figure out how are we going to integrate this stuff together, right? We then collaborate on the actual development through developer resources, and then we accelerate go-to-market activities through a whole program that we have set up within the program itself.
Got it. So I know that this is launching officially later in the year, right? But I know that there's also a lot of partners that are already involved in this, right?
Oh yeah, man, it's been,
Hopefully.
From InfoComm on, we've been working with leading brands such as LG, Sennheiser, Panasonic Connect, Audio-Technica, Somfy, and so many more, certifying and verifying their integrations. What does that mean when we certify and verify? Well, at launch, you'll see these branding logos, if you will, that basically assure that, one, we've created these technical, certified, supported integrations for our customer base, right? So you'll look for this branding on partners' websites, collateral, marketing material, and then access to these endorsed integrations are also inside Q-SYS Designer, inside Asset Manager.
Got it, yeah. So we've been talking about vCore, right, for the last 10 minutes or so or more. Does vCore have any impact on what's going on in the Technology Partner Program?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about vCore as a game changer, right? Simply put, right, this provides more access to more network control automation, allowing for more control possibilities, right, enabling partners to create really rich experiences for their customers.
Cool.
So,
hopefully, everyone's asking the same questions right now, which is basically going to be when. Right? We said later in the year. When does this actually launch? And then, more importantly, how do you become a part of this?
yeah, so later this year, right, calendar year, we're coming towards the end of the year, right? So if partners want to learn more, or they want to get engaged, they can go to Q-SYS.com/become a partner. There they'll be asked to fill out a very short survey where we can learn more about their integration and their intent, right? And then a member of the Alliances and Ecosystem team will reach out as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thank you, Gino. A reminder that if you want more information about this, that Gino will be able to answer some of those questions in the breakout sessions that will be taking place after we're done.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
All right, we've said a lot, and I promised that we'd be here to answer questions. I'm going to make good on that promise. We have one of our senior product marketing managers, Jason Kelly, manning one of the chat functions. Jason, are you seeing any major trends? What can we help answer or clarify for folks?
You know, we actually have a lot of questions.
Good.
We're going to be here all day.
I think we should encourage folks to join the breakout session after, because there's some specific stuff, very good questions, but I think we're going to have Greg and other folks dive in on some of those.
I mean, that's why we've got the breakout sessions. We expected this, so.
Okay, fair enough. No problem. Then we'll ferry on. Where this actually leads us to our first case study, which will bring us off to the races. A horse racing venue that is kind of legendary, dates back to 1789. This is the scene of the latest large-scale installation for Q-SYS. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Churchill Downs.
Churchill Downs is over 148 years old. It's a bucket list experience for people to come to the Kentucky Derby. So this place is always enhancing the experience of patrons.
We want people to come here and have a good time and go tell their friends, and they come back with their friends.
You know, there's over 1 million square feet under roof here.
We had a lot of failing hardware that was unsupported. We had 3 software platforms that we were working on. So those made any adjustments to the system extremely hard to do. We realized that Q-SYS was definitely where we needed to go.
Alpha knew that Q-SYS was going to be the proper platform for this venue. It just has so many things going for it, and this is a sprawling facility. It's a half-mile end to end. We needed to be able to centrally monitor and control all of that. As soon as we got a lot of this old technology out of the way and put in the Q-SYS technology, they were all coming out and saying, wow, this sounds fantastic. This is better than it's ever sounded before.
It makes me proud that we have gotten to this point from where we started, which was miles and miles from a really nice PA system that the fans could appreciate.
Churchill Downs, ladies and gentlemen. We have with us today in the studio the head of our US-based professional services group, Ed Vieser. Thank you for being here. Like the video said, a massive installation, lots of dynamic things happening. Can you set the stage for what the challenges were for Churchill?
Sure. Thinking about challenges on this project, consider a few key numbers. Replace 40 different DSPs. Manage about 650 amplifier loads. Control and provide consistent coverage of 1 million square feet. 1 Q-SYS designer file. So one of the early challenges was managing all of those amplifier loads. Rather than being governed by tying together 40 different DSPs, it was an awesome opportunity for the venue to reconsider the zone construction for the entire venue. And just the logical way that we could route sources around 1 million square feet. After that, creating simplified controls. We built dozens of customized UCIs for Churchill Downs. The first one that comes to mind is the one that's formatted for iPad. It's map-based navigation, so within 1 or maybe 2 presses, you've got source routing and volume controls for any zone at that venue. That was a huge deal for commissioning and tuning, but also for event support too. For example, when horses were being led out to the track at various times throughout the day, being able to bump down that track feed volume to prevent them from being spooked was just a really cool advantage of having a centralized processor with a robust UCI.
And it sounds like that level of granularity could never have been achieved with 40 disparate DSP platforms.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, if you were watching the video real closely, you would have seen a member of the dealer channel from Alpha Video who was part of this. Kind of take us through that interaction.
Sure. Alpha Video brought us in early. So long before any programming services were to be conducted, we were on site walking Churchill Downs with Alpha Video, understanding the pain points, and then over time collaborating on a scalable solution that could be implemented.
Yeah, so I mean, you listed already like 3 or 4 different services that your pro services group delivers. Can you walk folks through kind of the laundry list of what you provide?
Sure. My team is built to understand the way that a space is to be utilized and work with our US-based dealers on the functional requirements and then create the Q-SYS designer file to make it happen, and then be available to deploy and validate that designer file and any tweak and tune as necessary to create a great Q-SYS user experience.
Well, and make no mistake, what you're saying is that we're not here to get in the way of the dealer or usurp that authority. We're really just here to kind of augment their existing capabilities, right?
Correct, yes. Q-SYS Professional Services allows our dealers to extend their capabilities, expand into larger installations, knowing they have a very committed partner to collaborate with, and last but not least, provide additional assurances to their strategic customers that best practices are being adhered to.
So if you are based in the US and you want to learn a little bit more from Ed and his team about professional services, please go to qsys.com/pro-services. And again, Ed, you'll be in one of the breakout sessions if you have questions today. So please join Ed. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, so we've got a couple of product introductions done, and we actually have 3 more to go. This very next one builds on the premise of us taking the Q-SYS operating system and taking it off of our own hardware and putting it to employ standard off-the-shelf server technology. So it is my pleasure to introduce a brand new core, the Core 610. This is taking the Q-SYS operating system, like I just said, that has always been designed for both strength and for portability, and we're continuing to take that the way that we did with the Core 5200. The 5200, we took the operating system and we're able to use it on operating, on a server that's not our own, and we're doing the same thing with the 610. This time, the 610 is going to feature something that's a little bit down market from the 5200 for those more middle tier applications.
Let us walk through some of the technical specs of this device, because at first blush it might sound and feel a little bit like the 510, and that is by design. First and foremost, it has 256 by 256 network channels that can be used for QLAN, software-based Dante, AES67, 64 channels of AEC, 64 instances of VoIP, and the ability to have up to 16 of our new NM series network microphones. But it does offer a couple of key advantages above the above the 510. First and foremost is a scaling license that we're going to talk about in just a second. And that's going to enable us to scale that 610 into larger applications if need be. Again, the idea of right-sizing that piece. The other thing that it's going to include is the ability to scale into a new software-based Dante tier license. So with the advent of Q-SYS Designer 9.7, you'll be able to take the 610 all the way up to 256 by 256. It features a larger 480 gigabyte media drive, so if you're using this in a museum installation or anywhere that's using a lot of media, big WAV files, big FLAC files, you're going to be able to use that larger media drive without having to expand it physically because it's already there. And then the other thing that it's going to offer is 2 auxiliary network ports. Now, of course, it has 2 QLAN ports, which you can use for full redundancy, obviously. But though the addition of 1 additional auxiliary port to the other auxiliary port, bringing that to 2, it's going to enable things like the ability to partition out the IT services, or if you want to put Q-SYS Reflect Enterprise Manager on a separate NIC, you're able to do so. And of course, it is one RU. So if space is an issue, if that footprint is going to help, a single RU is going to help out quite nicely.
So Patrick mentioned the scaling license. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. We'll throw some numbers at you. The scaling license for the 610 is essentially going to give you about 50% more of all of the capabilities that the 610 has already. So looking down the line on both of those columns, you can see that that's 50% more general signal processing power, 50% more of the network ins and outs for the number of channels you can handle. AEC processors, that goes up from 64 to 96 channels you can do. The maximum number of the network microphones that we can handle from 16 to 24, as well as the same mentality applied towards general media stream receivers and WAN capability as well. And because of how fun this is, I want to bring someone on stage to talk about it, get a little bit deeper. I want to bring on Trent Wagner. He's the Senior Product Manager for the Q-SYS platform. Hello, Trent.
Hello.
I want to know, first of all, where does the 610 go? What is the use case for this specific core?
Yes, I mean, as you touched on, the 610 is kind of servicing those middle tier applications where the Core 110 leaves off, and to fill the gap between it and the Core 5200. We're looking at those larger monolithic systems, much like you have in hospitality, entertainment, and transit, where you do have vast, distributed music and background music paging, management.
So this is really is intended to be a centralized processor here, right?
That's one of the great benefits of being a network I/O processor, off the shelf, and that it relies on network peripherals to get the job done. So you can very easily centralize that. And rely on putting those peripherals and user interfaces like the TSCs and the NC and the NL and M series, QIO of course, out at the points of service where that connectivity needs to take place or those user interactions need to happen.
So can you talk a little bit about what that means for things like redundancy? It makes it a little bit easier when you've got your core in one location, yeah?
Right, so you can just pair up just like any of our cores, offer core redundancy, but yes, being network processor, it's very easy to centralize that, pair up too for a full resilient system.
Sure. And then the same thing for the endpoints, I'm assuming, right?
Endpoints, being very cost-effective, simple endpoints, it's very easy to scale or expand your systems or change as, needs evolve. Very easy to swap out endpoints, keep a couple spares on hand just in case something happens. Utilize Q-SYS dynamic pairing to very quickly swap an endpoint if needed be.
Sure. Okay, so I'm sure everyone's got the most important question, which is obviously when will this be available?
Yeah, so the Core 610 will be supported first in Q-SYS Designer version 9.6. You can get a head start on your designs. That'll support the baseline capacity and up to 128 channels of Dante licensed tier. And then version 9.7, as Patrick mentioned, will introduce the scaling license and the 256 channel software Dante tier.
Got it. Okay, so thank you, Trent.
Thank you.
He will be available as well in the breakout sessions once we are done. If you have more questions about the Core 610, so take a look for that.
All right, one more product announcement to go. This next one is coming to bear, again, the full power of having a software-based platform and taking that software and enabling a piece of hardware to do something that it couldn't do in the past. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the AV Bridging License by Q-SYS. Now, true to its name, we are going to unlock a piece of hardware that has been kind of hiding in the wings on this device and enable you to connect a laptop for BYOD communication. If we take a look at the back panel of this and take the cradle off, you'll see that it already has a USB-C port on it. So if you're one of the early adopters of the TSC Gen 3s, you might have been scratching your head thinking, what is this for? This is exactly what it's for. You're going to be able to run a cable through that cradle, which already has a space for it, along with that Cat5, and in doing so, be able to take full advantage of the room's cameras and audio and all of those pieces that Q-SYS is already governing. And in doing so, you're going to remove a piece of hardware from that solution. You're going to take away the need for any kind of USB extenders and ultimately put a bridging device in a place that just is logical, rather than having to mount it under the table or through a little cubby in the table. You're going to be able to connect directly to that touchscreen. Just makes a lot of sense, right?
So As Patrick mentioned, this is a feature license, right? So we will be using this as a feature to give that functionality to a touchscreen specifically. Because of that, that means that you are not going to spend your money on touchscreens that are not using that bridging functionality. You're only going to be using it where you need it. So if you want to just have a couple of touchscreens that have the bridging available, then that is your prerogative. But it also means that you still have the ability to, add that feature license to other touchscreens later down the line if you realize that the needs of your system have changed. That means that if you think about it, this is another way that we're sort of able to tackle supply chain issues with software solutions, right? If you're not able to get a physical device that can do AV bridging, well, your touchscreen is something that may already have it available that you can use the feature license instead. And for anyone who's been using licenses with Q-SYS already, you know how easy it is to deploy them. Deploying a license is done via the core in the core manager. I know this sounds sort of like it's tied to the touchscreen itself, but this is still a license that's deployed in the core for the number of touchscreens that you'll have in your system. So you can do that on Core Manager, and because you can do it in Core Manager, that means that you can also do it through Q-SYS Reflect Enterprise Manager, so you don't even need to be on site to get that license available.
I would like to dive a little bit deeper into this technology. We are fortunate enough to have the product manager for this bridging license, as well as our senior product marketing manager. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Brandis, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Let's actually start off with the licensing conversation.
Okay.
If you tuned in since the beginning, this is now the third license that we've chatted about. We want to make sure that everybody is clear on the nuances of this license in comparison to the other licenses. So kind of talk about this license, but round us out for all of the licenses that we just spoke about.
Okay, so unlike the vCore control, this is a one-time perpetual license. So this is node locked for the lifetime of your needs. It is a little different than the scaling license in that, as Nate mentioned, if you have 10 touchscreen controllers in your design and only 3 of them need AV bridging, you still are buying 3 licenses. You're not just buying one global license.
But you're not buying 10 licenses.
Yeah,
if you've
exactly.
got 7 on a wall, you don't need bridging on those, and you only want the ones on the table.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So so that's the licenses. Let's talk through the use cases. I showed an example of it in the collaboration space. Where else can this go?
Yeah, it can go anywhere where you want to connect a computer for AV bridging, where a touchscreen's co-located. So that could be a great example would be a presenter's lectern in a classroom or auditorium at a university.
Yeah. So the ideal place is generally where that presenter/laptop is going to be, and it's a perfect on-ramp for it.
And whether it's where a presenter is going to be, or it could be a tech booth in a house of worship, that's another great example.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about technical requirements. For those of you that have been watching the emails that have went through, you might have noticed that we put out an email about the technical requirements of a USB 3 cable for the 110 in order to get that full resolution on that bridging. Same scenario with AV bridging license?
Yeah, at its initial release, it's going to support only USB 3.0 speeds for high resolution. We're looking to actively add a compressed format for USB 2, but I just don't think that's going to get in time for the initial release.
Okay. You brought it up, the initial release. When can we expect that?
Yeah, Q-SYS Designer software version 9.7 will be the first one that supports this license.
Perfect. More questions for Mike Brandis. He will also be in those breakout sessions. Join him if you want to. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, let's move right along. And actually, let's take a look at another fun case study we've recently done. This is going to feature a leading university in Germany that was recently able to overhaul their system using Q-SYS to present a better equitable experience for people doing both on-site classroom learning as well as virtual learning. Let's take a look.
Das große Thema war ja mit Beginn der Pandemie, dass wir ja alle in dem ersten Lockdown vor der Herausforderung standen, dass wir von der Präsenzlehre quasi in eine Online-Lehre umschalten mussten. Und das war natürlich insbesondere für unsere Lehrenden eine riesen Herausforderung. Das ging ja los, wir mussten ein Videokonferenzsystem einführen, was erstmal überhaupt in der Lage war, sage ich mal, Leute extern irgendwie in eine Lehrveranstaltung reinzukriegen. Das war der erste Step, der im Winter, Frühjahr 2020, also quasi mit dem ersten Lockdown, ja, vor allen Hochschulen gestanden hat. So. Und das war ein Riesenaufwand an Arbeit für die Umstellung didaktisch auch der Lehre. Das war, glaube ich, das ganz große ganz große Thema. Dann kam natürlich im Nachgang auch die Frage an uns, an die Technik, wie kann man das gegebenenfalls dann auch unterstützen. Ja,
es ging hauptsächlich darum, 10 Seminarräume komplett so miteinander zu vernetzen, dass man die Möglichkeit hat, mit einem Dozenten in einem Seminarraum das Bild in die anderen zu übertragen und aber auch über Deckenmikrofone dann wiederum die Stimmen, Anfragen aus anderen Seminarräumen zurück in den des Vortragenden zu bringen, sodass wirklich alle das Gefühl haben, sie sitzen in einem Raum und können miteinander kommunizieren.
Also erstmal haben wir sowieso den Anspruch oder müssen den Anspruch haben, dass wir die Bedienbarkeit der technischen Anlagen in den Hörsälen so einfach wie möglich gestalten, weil wir sind hier für die gesamte Uni nur mit 2 Technikern unterwegs. Das heißt also, wir wären gar nicht in der Lage, das abzudecken, dass wir da die Dozenten jeden persönlich an die Hand nehmen können. Das ist also ein Anspruch, was wir an jedes System, was wir hier installieren, haben. Und das müssen wir da auch so konsequent umsetzen, sodass man sich auch als Dozent immer wiederfindet. Wir legen da auch großen Wert auf eine sehr einheitliche Bedienoberfläche innerhalb der Anlagen, ja, so dass man also dort nicht immer wieder neu lernen muss. Ja.
All right, let's dig a little bit deeper on that. We will now be joined all the way from Sensheim, Germany, by Ron Marchant, Vice President of EMEA Sales and Marketing for Q-SYS. Hi, Ron. How are you doing?
Doing great, Nate.
Excellent. So the video showed us a pretty good example of what the use case was for this specific hybridization. Can you tell us more about the actual components that are in place that made the virtual classroom possible?
Absolutely. So after the university converted the 2 main lecture halls for online teaching, Q-SYS was tasked with making the 10 seminar rooms hybrid capable. And to do this, the university invested in the Core 510i to both connect the rooms with each other, as well as to include the remote students. Each room is equipped with our PTZ cameras, TSC touchscreens, our NV32H video endpoints, as well as Sennheiser Team Connect Sealing 2 microphones.
That's great. And if I saw correctly on the video, it said that there's only 2 technicians in the entire university that are responsible for maintaining everything. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. That's also why ease of use was such a critical factor in the design. Automating the lecturer's routines by using Q-SYS control programming and the UCI editor within Q-SYS Designer allows the lecturers to start and manage events without having to ask for technical assistance, regardless of what room they're in.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ron. For anyone who is interested more in our higher ed offerings, feel free to visit qsys.com/higher ed, where we will be posting actually the entirety of that case study that we just saw in its entirety, probably within the next month or so.
Yeah. Okay. We've said a lot, and we want to make sure that we answer any additional questions that you have. I think we've got Christine back there. Christine, any major themes that we can address live on the air here?
Yeah, we've got 2 questions here that I see coming up. One is the baseline processing power of the Core 610 is listed as 16 times. What is that relative to?
That's a good question. That's relative to the Core Nano's processing power. So if you see 16 times on the 610 or 24 times when you do the scaling license, that's 24 times what the Core Nano would be able to provide. Good question.
Good question.
And we also have one more clarifying question on the AV bridging feature license. Is that cost per core or per touchscreen?
Yeah, we mentioned that a couple times. So yeah, the license covers how many devices you need to do bridging on. So if you've, like we said, if you've got 10 in the design, but you're only bridging on 3 of them, you need 3 AV bridging license to address that installation.
So it's per touchscreen, but it's deployed on the core.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Anything else, Christine?
That's about it.
All right.
You know what we should do, Patrick?
What's that?
We should do another product announcement.
What?
Believe it or not, we've got one more. Although we're actually not going to go terribly deep into this at all. We're gonna reserve this one for the breakout sessions, just in the interest of time. But we do have a line extension to the Acoustic Design Series, our award-winning loudspeaker series. 2 new models there: the ADC6T HC and HP. These are high-performance versions of our 6-inch loudspeakers. These are really designed for kind of specialty, nuanced applications. So we're not going to go into it, like I said, right now. But if you are interested in finding out more about that, do be sure to check out our breakout session that features that product.
Yeah, we actually have Dan Sines, who's the product manager for that, is ready to give an entire presentation on those loudspeakers.
Patrick, how do you get to those breakout sessions?
Oh, that's a great question. So in theory, those breakout sessions should be live right now. So if you go and look to the left of your screen, you should see a button that says Sessions. And if you click on that link, you should see a number of different rooms that you can go into, each of them corresponding to the topics that we talked about today.
Well, you've just initiated a mass exodus from them watching us. They don't want to talk to us anymore now.
Wait, don't go yet. 60 more seconds and then we'll be there. I really just want to thank you all for joining us live. On behalf of the entire crew that's here, Nate McCarrick and all the other presenters, thank you for joining us for this Activate. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
So long.